I think I've been intermittent fasting I probably started like 8 or 9 years ago, but when I worked at a startup, they fed us all kinds of food, so I definitely took a pause and stuffed my face. But since 2020, I've been pretty consistent with it. And basically, intermittent fasting to me just means eat when you're hungry and really understand, are you hungry or is it just a habit? So for me, intermittent fasting and the way that it shows up is I eat once a day. Now, that's typically a big meal with snacks. Sometimes I eat more, sometimes I eat less. I'm very mindful with how much I'm eating and what I'm eating. Not necessarily like weighing things out and counting every calorie. I pay attention to how I feel. If I still feel if I eat a huge meal and the next day I don't feel good, or I feel bloated, or I feel like I need a salad, I'll eat a salad. If I feel like I snacked too much or had too much sugar, I balance it out. Intermittent fasting is really just about paying attention to what you're eating. And what I found is that out of habit, out of boredom, we tend to just put in so much food in our bodies. And yes, we use food for energy, but we're also expelling a lot of that energy just to process the food. So a couple of random add values of intermittent fasting that you wouldn't normally expect is, well, let's go with the obvious ones first. Weight management. I think I was like 262 at one point. I'm 6'2". Now I was going to weigh myself today, but I forgot. But I hover around 190 to 215. Like, that's my cushion. I don't really weigh myself actually, I don't really weigh myself at all. I can feel it on my body, and if I feel like I need to eat more or eat less, I will. I like being able to, this is the first time in my life I've been able to manage my weight because I'm more in control of what I'm putting in my mouth. But some of the fringe benefits of intermittent fasting that we don't normally think about is the impact of it on our body. Every time you eat, your body, you're starting from your mouth, so just putting more mileage on your teeth, more mileage on your throat, more mileage on your digestive system, more mileage on your gut, more mileage on your butthole, more mileage on the whole process, right? You're spending more money on food because you're typically eating more. You're spending more money on toilet paper because you're probably shitting more. What were the other? I had a couple in my head the other day, but because you're being more mindful with your eating, you're also creating less waste. You're also not just what comes out of you, but packaging waste, post-consumer waste. You're also, what else? I know there was a few more. But these things that we don't think about, like even the impact on the environment, right? If I'm not eating three meals of meat a day, I'm not eating as much beef or chicken or, animal byproduct. I'm not eating as much of that. So it has less impact on the environment. Like I said about the waste, I'm not creating so much trash. So again, helpful for the environment. I think we all know why that's a positive thing. But these are just these fringe benefits that you don't really think of when you think of intermittent fasting. You think, oh, well, this is just a weight management or to eat less. That's kind of the main point of it, but there's so much more that can benefit you that we don't normally think of. So when you're thinking about intermittent fasting, it's really about what your kind of day-to-day looks like. I would say if you're interested in it, start. And again, I hate trying to, it's not it doesn't have to be this program that I'm selling you. All I'm asking you to do is be more mindful with what you eat and when and how much of it, right? And I think that's something that we can all use. And I'm not trying to body shame. I'm not trying to incite any of my philosophies on eating on anybody else. But this is, we're talking about mindfulness and intermittent fasting. So when we're thinking about our bodies, when we're thinking about what we're actually putting in our mouths, our body is actually taking, in the nutrients it's taking, it just changes your relationship with food. It makes it so much more intimate because you're not just eating to eat, you're eating with intention. You're paying attention to how the food is made, even if you didn't make it yourself. And you're understanding, maybe it's just me, but like the percentages of different ingredients that went into it. And then you're asking yourself, do I want to keep putting that in my body? At the end of the day, food is about nutrients, and our body needs nutrients to function properly. And if we're not being mindful with what's going into our mouth, then it can be repetitive. For example, if you have spaghetti for lunch and pizza for dinner, you're basically eating the same thing. There's a tomato, there's flour, there's, depending on what kind of pasta meat you're using, if you have like a turkey meat on your pizza and turkey meat in your spaghetti, you're eating the same thing. They're just in different formats, and there might be different seasonings and different flavors, but when it comes to the nutrients of it, it's pretty much the same. So when I think about whether or not I should eat something, I think about what were the ingredients in what I had last time. By last time, I mean yesterday or the day before, because again, typically once a day. And that helps me just have a different relationship with food and a different relationship with my body, because I know I can control it a little bit more. I can control the nutrients that I'm taking in. I can control the process in which my body processes food. I can feel it going down, and I can feel the effort that it takes to digest, and when it takes more and when it takes less, and how my body feels after I eat this or that. Intermittent fasting is just that avenue to be able to help you be more mindful with fasting. More mindful with eating. And again, this is just my input in my story. Not even my story, but my 2 cents about intermittent fasting. Ultimately, whether you should or shouldn't do it is completely up to you and how you feel in your body. And the mindfulness part of this part is, how do you want to feel in your body? How does it feel now? What aches? What needs to be stretched? What needs to be moved? What needs to have more weight? What needs to have less weight? More muscle? Less muscle? And intermittent fasting can be that way, that like I said, that avenue to be able to help you be a little bit more mindful with what you're eating. And like I said, can have additional fringe benefits that you wouldn't think of. And I think that's cool. It's helpful, at least to me. But whether or not it is to you is going to be up to your experience, and I would say it's worth a try. And it does depend on your health now, but it can also, there are different studies about the impact of fasting itself. There's a benefits to fasting for more than 24 hours, which I don't do very often. Again, I go based off of how I feel. Not necessarily. I'm not counting down the seconds. I'm not counting down the macros or the ounces or anything like that. I'm really just going off of how I feel. And it, to me, has made me be less dependent on food for out of habit and more of out of sustenance, out of nutrients. And I think it can be for other people too.